Gotcha.
Okay. Well, good evening, all. There are 15 of you, here so far. As John says, I'll plan to talk for an hour, and then we'll have half an hour of questions and revisiting anything that you would particularly like to see again or go into more depth about. It's pretty intensive. I've got 200 photographs, 600 megabytes of boatyard porn stored up for you. And there are about 25 slides, pulling them together. We'll make the slides available very soon. The photographs are going to be more problematic. We'll have to find a way of sharing them or selecting some of those. And I can also follow up with more detail on anything that comes up. Okay, and the recording should also be available to you all. Okay, so please mute yourselves for the time being, and use the chat to post any questions. And later on, we'll use Zoom hands perhaps to manage the questions too. Okay, so this is Asile. She's a good old boat. I'm going to talk about renovating her. Those are my details. So Asile is a Westerly Pentland. She was built in 1973. An early yard number. May have been the 38th hull out of the mould. Sail number is PD20. It's one of the. There are older ones, certainly. They're still in existence. 241 of these Westerly 31s were built between 1973 and 1980. The Westerly 31s were Berwick, Renown, Longbow, and Pentland. All the same hulls, different configurations. The Pentland and Asile specifically is marked by bilge keels. She has a centre cockpit. She has a ketch rig. She can. And we particularly like that configuration. We went looking for such a boat. She's just under 10 metres long overall. That includes short wooden bowsprit, because as a ketch, her main mast is mounted fairly far forward. Beam 2.9 metres. You'd be hard pressed to find a boat nowadays that's 10 metres long but less than 3 metres on the beam. And a draft is supposed to be 1.1 metre. We measure it at 1.25 metres. That might be something to do with the weight. The design displacement is 4.6 tonnes. It's quite heavy for a 10-metre boat. Again, a modern 10-metre boat probably wouldn't weigh that much. When we lifted her out in 2012, I asked the crane driver how much she weighed, and he said 6 tonnes. That's cruising order with all our stuff on board. So, Asile. Why Asile? The previous owners renamed her from Baal, I think, and chose the name Asile. It's a French word, not Asile or Asile. Asile means shelter or refuge. They use the same word for a retirement home and also for a lunatic asylum. So it all seems a particularly good name. We bought her in 2009 from John Rowntree in Gosport in England, and we sailed her home ourselves during a long week along the south coast and up the Irish Sea. Since then, we've done various jobs. I've done various jobs on her. The Eberspecher wasn't working, and we got a discount off the price for that, so I immediately spent it on buying a new one before I got a chance to have second thoughts about it. So we have an Eberspecher diesel heater. The batteries were flooded lead acid and didn't last very long in our ownership, so I replaced them with AGM batteries, 4 of them, 135 amp hour. The boat used to be owned at one point in her life by a liverboard couple, so we've got these beefed up domestic facilities. I fitted a propeller. I replaced the fixed 3-blade propeller with a Brunton's auto prop, and I did various other work. We've done various enhancements. I had a go at the 4-cabin port lights and headlining, with mixed success there. The Genoa furler bearings seized up. I replaced those. I relocated the cockpit winches to make it easier for short-handed sailing. I installed a couple of spinnaker poles, replaced the large heavy spinnaker pole with a pair of windsurfer masts that happened to be available, and that worked well. We also had to fix various things. A floppy keel. We kept her in Bray Harbour for the first few years, and Bray Harbour is hard on boats. We're on her 3rd rudder. The shafts get bent. A 1.5 inch diameter stainless steel rudder shaft, and at one point the keel worked so much that the skin became detached from the frames. We had to get some serious work done. After that, we didn't go back to Bray. We went to Arklow. So I have a few photographs of those early years before we get to the main meet. So let's see whether this album works. Some pictures of some of those things. From 2009. We immediately started using her. We went some interesting places, so she took us, without doing any work, straight up to Scotland, and we had a great tour in the Inner Hebrides. Might recognise the caves there. Here's some electrical work I did. A 1,000-watt inverter, big battery charger, VHF radio, and an ICOM AIS transponder, which I thoroughly recommend. I did something more on the electronics, connected in the yeoman plotter at the chart table with a multiplexer to integrate various instruments. A couple of big battery monitors as well, so we know exactly the state of charge. Here's the propeller, the original propeller, a 3-bladed fixed prop propeller. Now, she wasn't performing very well under sail or under engine, and I thought that replacing this with a better propeller would improve her performance. So I looked into it, and I became convinced by the literature and the engineers at Brunton's that this is the right propeller for a cruising yacht, and I stand by that opinion. I think it's a wonderful machine, and I thoroughly recommend it to anybody with a cruising yacht. So it'll cost as much as new sails will, but it's a 3-blade propeller. It's an adjustable pitch, an automatic adjustable pitch propeller. So the blades swivel, and because of very clever shape, it will always adjust the pitch to suit the loads, the speed, and the yep. Sure. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So. Okay. Anyway, I'll rave about that happily with anybody, anytime. The starter motor is a beefed up Lucas starter motor. It's running. It's a 12-volt starter motor operated at 24 volts, so it gives a good kick. It was problematic for a while until I stopped the diesel leak, which was soaking it. So after replacing a few of those, I'd got to know quite a lot about the dirty bits of the engine. Also, the gearbox is a J-type gearbox attached to the water motor Sea Panther engine. It's military-style, tough technology, and it has a built-in clutch which I learned somewhat belatedly, is adjustable and needs to be adjusted regularly to keep traction. So I learned how to do that. Here, this is what happens when a Genoa furler is neglected and develops leak. Salt water and bearings don't mix. I sourced some bearings in Ireland, just general bearing supplier, and replaced that, and it's worked a treat ever since. So good job. Okay, here's the headlining job in the fore cabin in progress. I chose to put in some closed cell foam, sticky on both sides, and then put the original headlining, minus its deteriorated foam, back on top. But I wasn't very good at it. I didn't know didn't know about upholstery, and it's pretty untidy. It is very warm, though. I don't have a picture of that finished at the moment. As you say, in Bray, we kept her on a mooring in Bray. She took the ground there twice a day for the first few years, and damaged rudder. Here she's sitting with the rudder off. So if you ever wonder whether she needs to sit on the rudder, the answer is no. She can sit without the rudder. Here is one of our new rudders ready to go on. Notice the stainless steel shoe. All the boats in Bray tend to have those to stop the fiberglass from grinding to bits on the stones. This is how we fly the spinnaker, with two lightweight spinnaker poles on each side, and lots of string to manage them. I moved the winches back onto the aft cockpit where the helm position is, up here. So, so this is Asile as she was, 2012, 2015. Good old boat in Bray, in Arklow Marina, and serving us well. Looking like an old boat, but very serviceable. I even moved these winches as well. So, sorry, the cleats inside. Notice there's only one cleat there in the middle on the outside. I changed that later. So with Asile we went, as I say, to some interesting places, and she's been a fine home for us. Okay, episode 0. So came 2015, and she was still looking after us well. We had just come back from a cruise in 2015 in the Baltic in a chartered yacht called Nixie, about the same size as Asile, and were really enthusiastic about cruising. And we'd also had some financial windfalls, and we could afford to consider replacing, upgrading, whatever, or renovating Asile. So we considered it, and we thought it through. The arguments came down to something like this: she's seaworthy. She's all these good things about her. A lot of it is the significant is the osmosis treatment that was done by a previous owner. 5 layers of epoxy primer after thoroughly drying out and treating the hull. So that's one of the westerly gremlins taken care of. Westerly droop is another thing, though. The headlining on westerlies always droops, but to be fair, it didn't start drooping until the boat was more than 30 years old, so that's okay. So we were the instrumentation, electronics were all pretty old, and the auto helm was unreliable and so on. So she was scruffy and a bit tired. So we considered the only boat that we seriously considered switching to would be a Westerly 33 Ketch, which is very much like Asile, but a little bit longer, slightly wider side decks for ease of moving around. But there weren't any available, and in any case, we would have been starting from scratch again with another old boat that would need work done. So anyway, we decided we would keep Asile and would put money into renovating her. Over the course of a few years, it's important that the boat earns her keep. So rather than take her off the water for 4 years and come back with a new boat, we were definitely only going to do the work bit by bit. So the first, so between then and late 2020, there are various jobs that went on, punctuated by cruises and using the boat. So I've divided the jobs and the work up into a number of episodes, and I'll go through the episodes one by one. I've got a slide on each episode saying what work was done, and then a whole pile of photographs which I'll go through. So in order to give you a feel for the whole thing, we'll have a look through the slides first of all, quickly, and then we'll go back and run through the slides and the photographs together. So episode 1, May to October 2016. We got new sales from Harry Sterling in Bray, a friend and our local sailmaker. The Genoa was too big, and we found ourselves furling it more often than not. So I went for a working jib, just 100%, just down to the mast, and a new mizzen sail. We also got new dodgers, freshen up that canvas. We put Fablon on the saloon bulkhead, which made a huge difference to the appearance of the saloon, the feel of the saloon inside. And I replaced one of the yellowy aging ventilator ventilights with some clear stuff, and a few other small jobs. Then in July 2016, we went to Peel with the Westerly Owners Association, then down to Conwy and joined the CAI for a cruise in the Menai Straits. So again, the boat gave us back lots in that first year. Okay. Episode 2 after that, in November 2016 through to June 2017, we gave some attention to the engine, and also replaced the fuel tank, which had been leaking, and we installed a fridge, or we bought a fridge. We got an auto helm. We replaced the auto helm with a brand new one, the latest Marine Evo. That comes with and requires a Seatalk NG network. So the old Seatalk network needed to be bridged into the NG network. So we lifted in June after all that, and set off to Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly. Except we got just outside the harbour, and the boat broke. The clutch and gearbox failed. The engine was fine, but the clutch couldn't be adjusted, couldn't get any traction out of it at all. So we were stuck. So we abandoned the cruise. We took a tow back into Arklow. Thanks very much. And it turned into our summer holiday, long summer holiday that got booked, turned into another maintenance session. She hasn't let us down that badly before. So, next couple of days I removed the gearbox. I was on holiday anyway. We loaded it into the car, and then we went for a driving holiday in England for a week. We took the gearbox to Sheridan Marine to get that and got that fixed by an expert. Then brought it home and installed and tested it. We were still in time to join the CAI cruise in Belfast Lough, so we sailed up to Bangor and salvaged the sailing season. So got some more sailing during the winter, and then in May, then we went to some more sailing. We spent a weekend sailing to Fishguard in May the next year, and on the way back, where we got some good sailing, the engine was smoking badly and was not performing properly. It was very lumpy, messy. So we had to decide whether to we considered whether to replace the engine or to repair the engine. Episode 4, we repaired the engine. We put it onto, lifted out an Arklow, put the engine onto a pallet, sent it across to Sheridan Marine in Devon, who specialises in this. And it came back a month later. We installed it and lifted in. And then we went off to the Firth of Clyde with the CAI, so more payback. Very good. Episode 5 has been the big one. We decided to get the deck painted to tackle the general scruffy appearance and make a look up to snuff, so we wouldn't be ashamed of it in marinas, and we'd be happy to welcome people on board as well. So we went to Malahide, lifted out there. I took all the fittings off and filled all the holes for the redundant fittings we didn't want. That took months, December to May. Along the way, I did some sidelining. I'm not sure about that date. Rewiring the mast was the other job that I wanted to get done during that thing, and getting that period and getting the standing rigging replaced. So, So Malahide Boatyard painted the deck between May and July in 2019. So that's the first part of it. The second part was when the boat came out of the yard, all painted freshly and smart. In July 2019, I put all those fittings back on. Well, not all those fittings. I left out a good few of them that we didn't need, and I put in brand new ones in many cases as well. I renovated and fixed the windows, which had always leaked a bit, and installed a brand new spray hood and so on. So March 2020, the first COVID lockdown came up, and suddenly I was denied access, so I couldn't spend all my days all my weekends going up to Malahide to tend the boat. In April, I retired from work, and the lockdown continued until June, so I couldn't spend every day popping up to Malahide and fixing the boat. So just staying at home, doing what I could, and twiddling my thumbs, waiting for access again. So the next episode then follows the lockdown, when I was able to get to the boat again, and being retired, could afford to spend weekdays up there as well as weekends. Not all of them. So I enhanced the shore power, fixed the log impeller, and finished off the saloon inside. A lot of work on the saloon, more Fablon. Finished the headlining inside, and tidied up the woodwork, and we painted the fridge locker. Got a VHF radio, and so on. We launched on the 7th of August in 2020, and joined the CAI cruise to Belfast, Strangford Lough, and eventually got home to Arklow on the 30th of August. So those are the five episodes, 5 periods, and that's the total amount of work that I'm going to be describing. So we go back to the beginning and have a look at some pictures. We just got sails, Fablon on the saloon bulkhead, and ventilators. This will give you a flavour for the renovations. So let's see what we do. Okay. This look familiar? Yeah. This is right. Yeah. Yes, we're yeah, the order of a couple of these batches is very odd. So this is Peel, where we went at the end of at the end of that period after renovations, and the CAI cruise in Conwy. Okay, this is the Fablon, which transformed the appearance of the feel of the saloon. We were very impressed. That's what it looked like before. The dark brown Formica of Westerly. There are two new cleats here on the side deck. I like to have one rope for each purpose and one cleat for each rope. You notice that there's an extra fair lead here as well. I've got a piece of just a pulley on a string. That's necessary because the new jib requires a lead much further forward than the old Genoa. Oh. Okay, right. So that's about. So back to front. Okay, episode 2. We got the engine overhauled by Derek Reamsbottom, who may be known to some of you, between December and March. The overhaul, not because the engine had stopped. It has always been pretty reliable. Sometimes it takes used to take a few attempts to start, and it's always leaked oil. So we were hoping to get some of those things addressed. Also, the diesel tanks were leaking as well, so I needed to do some work on those, and they're tucked away behind the engine, quite inaccessible. So it's another reason for taking out the engine. And we had the fridge, so and the auto helm. So all that went in over the winter of November 2016 to June 2017. And here are some pictures. Again, I'm not sure they're all in the right order in this case. Let's have a look at the chat. Get Micah to go. Yep. Okay. Your volume on full. I've been trying to speak up, but and I'm closer to the microphone. Let me turn my volume up too. So this is Asile ashore in the boatyard behind Arklow Sailing Club, rigged up for lifting an engine. This is a magnificent long main sheet salvaged from Sundance, a previous boat, which is more than long enough to reach the ground from the boom. So this is how I use it. Oops. Beg your pardon. I can't slideshow. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Right. Yeah. Okay. So, I practiced with my toolbox. So set up the rigging on the using the boom. There's and lifted this toolbox out and then lowered it to the ground using the pulley. So the load is taken by the load is not taken by the topping lift. The load is taken by the jib by the spinnaker halyard to the end of and the boom is used to as a strut to prop it out. So that's the technique I used. The engine has a lifting tab on the top of it. So I stripped it out and got it forward into the saloon, which is a tricky business, and from there lifted it up and out through the hatch. It just about fits. And down onto a custom-made stand ready to go off to be fixed. and tied it down. Okay. So that left this big hole, this big gap, and I finally had access to the fuel tanks. Now, Asile had 2 tanks, on each side, with some cables, some plumbing for the rear heater, for the heater in the aft cabin. And so these 2 tanks are linked by a pipe across the back, and the outlet is this tap here. So I drained the diesel out of it and removed both tanks. So this is what was left. That's where the leak was. It wasn't the only rusty bit, but it was the worst one. So this is the configuration of the tanks when it was inside. The filler on one of them, a hose linking the 2 together, and the tap on the other one. So another thing that I found was the control cables for the engine were corroded, stiff, and generally needed replacement. So I got new Morse cables as well and fitted those. Having looked at tanks and the best way to go about it, I settled on Tech Tanks, who make very good solid tanks out of plastic, which is an excellent material for making tanks. HDPE, I think. They have strict requirements for the support. You have to support it on 2 solid sheets of plywood with a frame around it. So I made up this tray and then mounted it on the old supports. Looking from the aft cabin forward through the engine compartment, you can see how accessible everything is, how much space there is all the way through the centre of the boat. On the Eberspeker fits on a plate, is mounted on a plate in here on the left-hand side, the port-hand side, but there isn't very much more to see here. These are cockpit drains that come down. Okay. I surrendered the old bosun's locker, which used to be full of all sorts of old bits of boat and string and useful stuff when we got the boat. But it's much too close to the galley to be used for that purpose. So it needed to be handed over for kitchen work, and the thing we most needed was a fridge. So I cleaned it out and put in shelves, put in supports for a fridge. Here's the tank. Beautiful piece of engineering. It's sitting inside the wooden tray that I made for it. All fits very nicely. So I thoroughly recommend Tech Tanks. Here are the details. The capacity is 70 litres. That's the 2 old tanks before totaled 90 litres, but I don't feel that's any kind of problem. We carry cans in. We carry spare cans anyway, and 70 litres will take us a very long way. So the tank went in like that, held down eventually by a ratchet strap, not a bit of rope, this is the engine arriving back in, and this time she was lifted by Arklow crane hire because it was available and most convenient. So. Again, sorry about the sort order. We're back to the tank again. These are the fittings on top of the tank. A bit fiddly reaching in to attach the down pipe, but the main feed going to the filter was very straightforward. This is the return from the engine, and this is one of the control cables coming down past it. On the other side, we have a small extra takeoff point to feed the Eberspeker heater. It sips tiny quantities of diesel from the main diesel tank, so we never need to worry about acquiring or running out of fuel for the heater, and there is a return from that as well, which goes into the top. There's a tank. There's a fuel gauge as well, which is a novelty for us. We never knew how much fuel we had left before. And here is the pump for the Eberspecher. There's the fridge, a wonderful machine, a Waco. We picked it up at I think we spotted it at a boat show and ordered directly. It just about fits. It's very tricky to get it into place, but you get it, manoeuvre it round the corners and put it on its seat, and it works a treat. It's a wonderful machine. Thoroughly recommend that. Get the biggest one that will fit. This is when the fridge is plugged in and nothing else. It draws 2.9 amps. Now that's the most it draws. That's when it's warm and cooling down. Generally, it will take a lot less than that. So we don't find a problem. But then we have electricity coming out of our ears on Asile anyway. Here's the engine going back in. Moving the engine forward and backward is tricky. You've got no access from the top because of the bridge deck. So this time I tried rigging a rope spar along the top and running it in along with a pulley sitting on top of that. It kind of worked, but it wasn't ideal. So anyway, I got it in, and this is the aft end of that arrangement. Another handy billy to hold up the aft end. So it all went in without any damage, and there it is sitting on its bearers again, and connected in. Along the way, I installed a water meter as well, because we never knew how much water we had. That was interesting, working with the thin-walled stainless steel water tank under the forward berth. But that works a treat. Good. A couple of other little odds and bits and pieces. I like these closed fair leads. I think open fair leads have always bothered me a little. The rope can escape out of the top of them. If you go alongside a wall in a tidal area, the ropes are going to be pulled upwards at some stage, and I don't like that they can come out. So I wasn't able to find any ready-made closed fair leads, or hawse holes as they're called. So I made some. Just found some of these big U-bolts with a little wavin pipe to protect the wood here, remade. So a little Heath Robinson, but effective, and it proved that it's effective, that it works. Good. And then we went off on holiday. We were ready to load up the boat again with all our cruising stuff and go sailing. So this is probably most, but it's unlikely to be all of the stuff that we had to put back on board the boat to go sailing. There's another couple of out of order pictures of the engine going back in. Here's another job that comes to all Westerly owners, and probably most other boats as well. The stanchions that support the lifelines are vulnerable to knocks, and on a Westerly, the stainless steel stanchions bed in these alloy stanchion bases, and they crack and deteriorate. So you can get replacements. One of the best things about Westerly yachts and their success, their huge success in the 1970s, 80s, and into the 90s. There were a huge number of them built. They used stock parts, and they're still in existence. The yachts are still in existence, so there's still a market for the parts. So people supply them. Workshops make replacement parts like this. And there's a supplier called Trafalgar that makes them all available to us in the Westerly community. Another good reason for sticking with the Westerly. Good. So that was episode 2, and we're up to June 2017 now. So I'll nip quickly through the pictures for episode 3. I don't think I've a lot of pictures here. We want to get on to episode 5 and the fittings, I suppose. So we went on holiday to England with the gearbox in the boot, and this is a holiday photograph. Anyway, this is where it started. We were following Tobago, thanks to Tom Ray and his crew. We were going to be cruising in company down to the Isles of Scilly until Asile stopped working. So they kindly came back when we radioed them, and they towed us into Arklow. We gave them some cheese. Then I detached the drive shaft and took out the gearbox. First time I'd done that. Those studs, the gearbox sits on those 4 studs with nuts inside the gearbox. You have to take the cover off the top of the gearbox and reach round behind the gears to undo the nuts. It's just about possible to get a ring spanner in. And the gearbox is not very big and not very heavy when it comes out. It is extremely dirty. So there's, just for interest, I must have thought that I must have felt good at the end of that particular exercise. Ticks against all the steps on the way. This is not a picture. This is not a photograph. It's not a picture on the wall. It is a shot through the window of the hotel in Henley-on-Thames where we stayed on our commiseration holiday, not getting to the Isles of Scilly, home of Braxpear's brewery. We took in a family gathering as well down in Hampshire. These are my brothers and my 3 brothers and other relatives. You probably see a certain family resemblance. This is Sheridan Marine. They look after fleets of riverboats on the Thames. Many of those boats, and they used to manufacture them as well, many of those boats have these J-type gearboxes. And when Westerly went out of business and Moody stopped using them, the water motor Sea Panther engine franchise went to Robert Stevenson in Devon, and the J-type gearbox franchise went to Sheridan Marine in the Thames. And they still, as far as I know, they still provide that service. So they overhauled it. They made judicious engineering decisions about what had to be replaced and what didn't. They gave it back to me with stern admonition about the importance of watching the adjustment on the clutch. A couple of times a season, you really need to snug it up and make sure that it's really stiff to push it into gear or not. Otherwise, the clutch slips, generates heat, and the hardened metal plates deform. So, a good working gearbox again. We came back, we put it in the car, and we came back via Cardiff. I used to live in Cardiff. We had a look around there. When I lived there, it was all mud, but now they've put a barrier in front of it. It's a glorious place for water sports of all kinds, and I look forward to going back there myself in a boat. So, fitting the engine, again, more advice from Sheridan Marine. Be very, very careful about the alignment of the shaft going into it. So I bought myself a wheel micrometer and used it to verify that as the shaft in the engine turns, there's no eccentricity in it. It's all perfectly centred. Good, new to me. and there's the gearbox ready to go back in. You've seen what it looks like when it's in. So we went sailing. We went up to Belfast, Abercorn Basin, Abercorn Basin, and had a holiday with the CAI. We cruised around a few more times during the winter. Next spring we went to Fishguard, and this is Fishguard. We were there for the weekend, and we were coming out again on the way home, passing this significant lighthouse on the corner, and this here is fog. It's a huge bank of fog, and it extended halfway across the Irish Sea. Very dramatic, and we haven't seen such conditions, but we were able to make progress. We got some breeze, surprisingly enough, and we're able to sail most of the way back. Here's another interlude. When we went up to the CAI, we were late for the start, and we had to make a heroic passage from Arklow to Bangor. We did it in 23 hours in Asile. By coincidence, on yesterday, or Sunday night to Monday, with Cian and Michael, I made a similar passage from Greystones to Bangor, and we did that in 14 hours, I think. So that was episode 3. So 20 past. Episode 4. As we came back home to Arklow, and we're using the engine a bit, as I say, it was not sounding good. So we decided that we would. We made inquiries, talked to Robert Hingston of Stevenson Marine, talked to the supplier of beta engines, and a few other people, and hummed and hawed about replacing the engine with a new beta, but decided in the end that this engine was worth another go. So we sent her off to Stevenson Marine, and he spent a month fixing it. We put it back in. So here are pictures of that episode. So we're out of the water at Arklow. A bit of rope to support the aft end of the engine, and again my rope sling under the front. Managed to get it out, much the same as before, using the boom. So. And when I put it back in, I devised this better method of doing it. I had some stainless steel bars, and 4 of them together could support the weight of the engine without bending in the middle. So I rigged up the bars, supported at the aft end and at the forward end, and slid the engine in along that on this piece of webbing. That worked much better. I had complete control over it. I could raise and lower the engine, move it back and forth without significant effort. So very accurately. So I commend this to you. And that's what the aft end looks like. Good. And we went off sailing. That's my brother Martin and Sue as we headed off. And the engine, again, out of order. The engine going in. So so this is Asile, and the engine. So again. So that's Asile in 2018, and we went then for the paint job. I talked to a few people and did a little research, but I didn't do. But once I got a quote from Malahide Marina Boatyard, seemed reasonable. I didn't try very hard for competing quotes. They'd done good work for me before, in particular sticking the keel back on again and fixing one of the rudders. So I was confident they would do a good job at a reasonable price. So I gave them the business. So we took the boat over to Malahide, lifted her out, and this is the this is about stripping her down and preparing for painting. I'm going to zip fairly quickly through these. Excuse me. They might be again not in the best order, but you'll get a picture. You'll get an idea of what I did to prepare her for painting. There's the pulpit gone. This is after she's in the yard. The yard went off a little early, moved her into the shed, and started removing the deck paint before I was ready. So we negotiated a bit more. They moved it back out, and I took off all the rest of the fittings. So that's why it looks half stripped down while the fittings are still on. I was rewiring the mast at the same time. This is the aftermarket in-mast reefing gear. Mast rewiring, I wanted to put some more antennas. This is a GSM antenna for providing an internet service. It goes mounted on the spreader, and there was a hole in the mast, so I was able to feed in the cable for that one. I fitted a new navigation light here, and rewired that as well. So, and the client. So we've got brand new cable coming out here. Almost all of it is new there, and mousing cables. This is the state of the deck before she went in for painting. So flaking paint. This deck paint had been applied on top of old paint. We suspect during the few months before we acquired the boat, as the owner spruced her up for sale. This crazing happens to any gel coat that's exposed to the sun. It's not unusual, but it is unsightly. So this is Asile arriving at the yard. I had to take out fittings like this, and of course photograph and record the details of all the wiring diagrams. So our son Dave helped me for a bit of it. And this is what the cockpit looks like, stripped of its woodwork, and the fittings have gone. All the jammers have gone from the deck. There's an old speaker has been removed, and the holes have been filled. The after. You've got to cover up. You've got to put something into each of these holes so that the paint won't spray through onto the inside. So you typically use old screws or screwed up pieces of masking tape. Notice that the fore-hatch cover has a bit of bare fiberglass. That allows light in. It looks horrible on the outside, but it gives a bit of light into the fore cabin. We decided we didn't want that, and we'd rather have a smart-looking hatch. So all the hinges have gone from the lockers. All the catches for the cockpit sole. Everything out and made smooth, ready for painting. This fills an old ventilator on the aft cabin, which was leaking, and since we don't use the aft cabin for sleeping, didn't need any more, so I filled that up, that hole. Okay, so she's just about ready to go in, and here is the yard just starting to work. You see that all the remaining fittings they have masked off with paper and tape, including all the port lights and the woodwork, which I didn't remove. They then applied high build primer which smooths out all the small imperfections, and in particular deals with any of the crazing that you've seen before. In there. Okay, so more of the boat as she's being prepared. I tidied up and replaced fittings on the mast as well. Of course, took out all the ropes. They all got washed before they went back in, and some of them were replaced with new ropes. Those are the fittings before. Okay, so that's Asile stripped, ready for painting, and she went into the yard then to get painted. Came out in July 2019. So I then had to install all the deck fittings again. We stepped the mast at some point in September as well. I did the windows during October. The windows had leaked, so I got new seals for them. Installed a spray hood that we got from Harry again to my own design. Worked out with Harry. Put on a jib track for the new jib as well. So, okay, here are the pictures you missed for that. This is Asile after she's been painted. Absolutely looks gorgeous, like a brand new boat. I'm very impressed. Feast your eyes on this. Remember all the gubbins and the fittings that were here, fair leads and cleats and all sorts, and the blanked holes of old fittings. So all cleaned up. See where the this is where there used to be another ventilator here, all gone. So good. The cockpit I'm particularly impressed with. This is a really fiddly job, but the yard did a beautiful job of painting that. This is 2 coats of all grip, old ivory is the colour. And the blue non-skid is Interdeck from International. These pieces, the detachable pieces, were all done separately. And this is how the hatch cover looks. You remember the crazing on the side of the hatch cover? None of that anymore. Beautiful job. Okay, so we're outside now in the yard, and I'm putting all the fittings back on again. The push bit, that's a new roller for the aft for a stern anchor, so on. See, that's a ventilator with a fresh white insert, clear insert, and I haven't got round to replacing at that point I hadn't got round to replacing the old brown opaque ones. I put the cover over, because the windows are out. So that's mainly to keep the weather out of the windows. It wasn't totally effective, and we got quite a lot of rain in the boat. Okay, on the foredeck, I put in 2 oversized fair leads, and did a job on the wood. This is one of the lockdown jobs. I used Teak Wonder system. It comes with, first of all, a cleaner, then a brightener, and then a sealer. And if you work diligently through it, and you first scrub off all the green stuff, which is a tedious afternoon's work, then you get very good teak that doesn't go green for quite a while. Stepping the mast sometime later in September. I got some more of these fair leads made up with the steel plate across the bottom. Here's the headlining. Here's the side lining in the cabin. It's the same as headlining, but vertical. This had to go in before the windows went in. So this is how you'd. So this time I've learnt how to do it. Hawk House supplied the materials and very good instructions, and I just followed the instructions. So this is what it looks like on the other side as the side lining goes on. You start off with your foam-backed vinyl. As I say, it'll last 30 years. It's certainly not going to fall off while I'm still owning it. You draw a line along the you cut a piece that is too big, oversized all round. You draw a line along the surface it's going to be fixed to, the side of the boat here in this case, and you draw a corresponding line in chalk on the back of the foam. So that's how you're going to line it up. You then apply some glue to the wall, and you spray some different glue onto the foam, and you very carefully line up just the bit with a line. Make sure the two lines are together. Now you're working with a strip of glue only about so wide. Once that's in place, you then arrange it like this. You put glue on the next strip, and you spray the foam that you can see, and then you let down the foam and make contact. You only get one crack at that, of course. It's contact adhesive, and it's extremely sticky. So if you make a mistake, you can't pull it off and do it again. So there are odd wrinkles, but very few of them this time round. I was definitely getting better at it. So this is windows out. I cleaned up the windows, took the glass out. There are the frames. They split in two, top and bottom. Then there's a rubber strip goes around them. Again, you get this from Hawk House, and cut it to size. Having cut it, you then take the half of the window and you force the frame onto the glass, enclosing the rubber. So you're getting and you've got to get the joints right. Getting the length of the rubber is absolutely critical, with no gaps. Okay. And this is what the window looks like when it's fitted. Notice the seal is still sticking out from around there. It's best left until the whole thing is in place, and then you can cut off the excess seal with a knife at an angle. And that's what it looks like inside. Having done that, having cut off the excess rubber, you then need to seal it as well. So you apply a squeezy sealant all the way around the window, and smooth it out, both inside and outside, to be sure. So I did that, and the windows do not leak at all, and I don't expect to give them any more attention now. So this is starting to. There's more bits going back on. More of there's a breakwater going on there, and we've got the frame for the spray hood here ready to take the new spray hood. So I've got a bit of this is it's still got the plastic over it because the windows haven't gone on yet. But there's Dave again. Help me get some wood back on. The woodwork in the smart woodwork in the cockpit. Very good look. And the masts went on. The cable for one of the new antennas, probably there's a short stubby antenna I put up dedicated to the AIS. I couldn't find a way of putting it through inside the mast, so I decided to put it on the outside of the mast. There are plenty of vertical lines coming down the mast, and I chose this vertical line, laid the antenna cable into it on a bed of Sikaflex 291i. I've always been a big fan of Sikaflex 290. The good thing is it seals very effectively and sticks hard. The bad side is it's a glue, so it sticks very hard and it's very difficult to get it off. So I'm using its adhesive qualities here to good effect. That cable hasn't shifted since we put it in. Very good. Right, the winches are back on. after being serviced at home, of course. So, and the new stanchion bases all round. I got a new set of stanchions too. So the new stainless steel stanchions, new cable, new lifelines around there. That came along with the standing rigging from Masts and Rigging Ireland. And there are closed fair leads here on the side deck as well to take the springs. There, one of the last jobs was the jib track, a forward jib track to take the to give a good lead for the 100% working foresail. So that's pretty much it for the big renovation, the paint job, and the reconstruction afterwards. But there's still work to do inside. So this is 5.3. I'm conscious that I've talked for maybe 5 minutes longer than I intended to on this, but if you bear with me another 5 minutes, and we'll have time for questions after that. So 5.3, June to August 2020, full steam ahead, ready to get the boat ready to go sailing is the plan, and so all this work again. So the last set of pictures. Shore power, number of improvements to shore power that I'd been meaning to get round to for years. So instead of dangling a piece of wire through a little chink in the top of the washboards with a 3-pin socket on the end of it, we now have a proper installation. The shore power cable comes into the locker, even when the locker is closed, and into a purpose-built socket. It then goes through a galvanic isolator, which is in circuit, which is in line with the earth wire, while the main and the live and neutral go around the loop. So that shore power cable goes round the locker and in the other side. That piece of clear plastic is nothing very special. It's a leftover fitting that's no longer needed, and it's there to protect the wire and the hole as the wire enters the hole from all the stuff that gets thrown into the locker. It comes through this side and into a standard domestic unit with 2 circuit breakers. They're residual current devices, in fact. One of them protects the battery charger up here, and the other one protects this circuit where there's a brand new double socket. So we've got great shore power now on Asile, and right, good. You recognise what this is? If you stare at it for a few minutes, you'll recognise that that these are layers of anti-fouling. So we're looking at a hole in the bottom of the boat. This is the hole where the log impeller used to be. I was going to replace just the log impeller using the old housing, but I got the bit between my teeth and removed the old housing and put the new housing in instead. So this is the new housing with a special flap to stop all the water from gushing in immediately. And here's the inside, standard MR device. That was a surprisingly easy and painless operation. I was quite concerned about it, but really nothing to worry about. Just do what it says on the tin, and these MR senders are readily available. This one talks C-Talk NG, so I can't plug it into the original C-Talk instruments, but that's fine because it talks to C-Talk NG, and I can see the depth on the. I can even see the depth on the auto helm readout. So this is the inside of the saloon after most of the outside work has been done and the windows are in and everything. So still a bit tatty. Obviously the ceiling could do with a bit of work. So. Using the same techniques, this is the headlining on the top of the top of the saloon, and just needs to be trimmed down and set in place. And there's wooden trim that goes all around the outsides. of it as well. Oh, out of order. This is all cleaned up, ready to take the new headlining. Okay, so this is after trimming the headlining. I've also put some battens along to cover the joints here. Curtain rails will go on there. We've also applied Fablon to the other half of the forward bulkhead of the saloon. That's amazing stuff. You can't get over it. Makes a big difference. Oh yeah. There's notice the woodwork is in place on the port side. That locker, the starboard side's not in yet. Okay, clean and tidy up this bit. I left the seam down the middle uncovered. I'm quite tall and I don't make contact with it like this. If I put a wooden batten to cover that seam, then I would make contact with it from time to time. So we'll live with that. There's wooden trim still to go in along here, so it looks neater than that. Sue painted the fridge cupboard, so we've got a bright white fridge cupboard. I installed some more electricity, so we've now got USB sockets in the fore cabin and more reliable electrical supply for various other bits and pieces. I rerouted the furler for the Genoa outside the stanchions all the way back to the aft corner, where it goes round a pulley and down to a block with a cleat. So from the that's tamed. It used to be led very uncomfortably across the top of the cabin onto a clutch. So the foredeck. I can't find a picture of the arrangement that I eventually came up with here, but this is part of the planning for it. The idea is to keep the anchor on the bower roller all the time and make sure that it's balanced properly so that it doesn't try to escape. You notice I've got a chain stopper here as well. That's something I've always wanted. I'm delighted to be able to install one of those. I bought a VHF with an AIS receiver and installed it on a swinging device inside the aft cabin at the helm position. So now we've got 25 watts of VHF power at the helm and an AIS readout there as well. There was a hole appeared after the painting was all done when I was cleaning up ready for the headlining, and there was a bit of a leak, so I had to repair that. Ongoing jobs. Those cables that came down out of the mast used to go through rather unhappy plug socket affairs fitted through the cabin roof. I sealed all those holes up and drilled some new holes further forward, so the cables come straight through now into the heads through some where they connect, and I've got connectors much further down inside the boat to connect to the instruments. This is what it looks on the outside. New waterproof seals on the deck for all the cables. And just a bit of bendy tape to keep them neat. So this is what it looks like towards the end. This is Sue, and she's in service and ready to go. This is the view in the other direction. A bit of smartened up woodwork here. Good side lining, headlining, and there she is on the dock at Malahide after launching in August, and that's away somewhere. All the sticks and string back in place, and the smart woodwork in the cockpit, and under sail that's the working jib and the new mizzen as well. Oh yes. I should point out this. We did acquire also a chart plotter for the first time, and there's a chart plotter now mounted on the mizzen mast at the helm, so that can see the depth. It does what chart plotters do. So we went to Belfast and Abercorn Basin again, and had a grand old time there. Asile is still very much a party boat. This is this is Sheila the Parrot, and the boat in party mode. On the way back, we took time out to visit Strangford Lough, and this is Asile on Strangford Lough at Coyle, which I thoroughly recommend to you. Lovely place to visit. Let me have a look at have a go. Okay, looking at the chat, just checking the chat. So anyway, I'm not being told to stop, so I'm going to continue for a little bit. So the conclusions, what do we do? What do we got? Asile is now smarter than she was. She's faster than she was under sail and under engine. She's more reliable. We have better instrumentation. The chart plotter, the VHF, the AIS, and so on. We have a better electrical installation, both shore power and 12 volts. I am intimately familiar with every corner of her and with most of the systems now. There's very little that I haven't taken apart and put back together. So what did it cost? Well, it cost loads of money. I don't know exactly how much. Didn't cost more than we expected, and it didn't cost more than we could afford. But it's not cheap. Lots of effort, lots of my time spent weekends and evenings upside down in engine room and so on. But very rewarding, the whole thing. And time out of use. Well, she spent nearly 2 years in the yard at Malahide Marina, and that was unexpected. We hoped we'd be in the water after 1 year, but COVID came in, and we did increase the scope of the work there. So certainly took longer than expected, but we have had plenty of payback over the whole period. Do a bit of fixing, do a bit of sailing, do a bit of fixing, do a bit of sailing. And maybe sometimes do a bit of sailing and fixing at the same time. We've had plenty of payback, but we're looking for a good deal more in future. We don't anticipate any more 2-year refit operations, but you never know. Let me finish off with a few words about our suppliers. Thanks to all these suppliers. It may be useful for others. Malahide Marina and the Boatyard, Arklow Marina and Crane Hire. Trafalgar House do Westerly spares. Stevenson Marine fixed the engine. Sheridan Marine did the gearbox. Hawke House did the headlining. I get all my general chandlery now mostly from SVB in Germany. Really good quality stuff, incredibly cheap, and they ship very quickly for a flat €7.50. Inox.ie supplies stainless steel nuts, bolts, screws, everything you could ever want. No need to rummage. I'm done with rummaging through the little boxes and hanging on hooks in the chandlers. Work out what you need. Order it from inox.ie. It'll arrive very quickly at a good price. Marine Parts Direct are also good too, but again, there's some stuff I wouldn't buy from them, but there's plenty of stuff that they do very well, and they're very convenient. Harry Sterling, thanks very much for the sails, which have performed very well, and the spray hood and the other canvas. Marston Rigging Ireland did our standing rigging, as no doubt all your standing rigging. So that's the end. Repair is noble. Any questions? I think.
Thank you very much, Simon. Simon, would you like to just unshare so we can?
Sharing.
Yeah, Simon. Well, first of all, unbelievably interesting talk, as I expected it to be. But my goodness, you sweated over that boat, and you deserve each other, I have to say. Yeah, she's lovely. And what a change you've made to her. I noticed you shied away from the cost, which was going to be my first question. But of course, I understand why you don't have it. But yeah, I know that doing up old boats is always very expensive. Yeah, sure thing. I've got a couple of questions for myself before we just a couple of quickies. Yeah, 24 volts. That must have been something Sheridan came with, or you did.
Oh, she came with it. She was always built that way.
Okay, that's
the Pentland. Even from the yard, you'll find that information on the Westerly Owners Association site as well. These Lucas starter motors were beefed up specially with extra tough brushes and what have you, and it worked and still works. The boat's always had 24 volts, so the main engine system